Hey, I want to take a moment today to talk about what just happened up in Canada. There was a mass killing in Canada where the person chose to use a firearm as their weapon of choice. Now, this is a tragic loss of life, up to like 22 people so far, I do believe, and I don't even know if we have all the numbers in yet. This is a really bad thing. It happens during a really bad time, during the pandemic, etc. It would be bad any time, but it's especially bad now because it's even hard to have funerals and mourn for the people that are lost. But I don't want to talk about the event itself so much. I want to talk about the lessons to be learned and the lessons people are taking from it. And then I want to apply those lessons to some of the things I've been saying here in this country for a long time. Now, up in Canada, they have draconian gun laws, very strict gun laws, yet this still happened. So you would think a lot of people would sit back and say, you know what, we've passed really strict gun laws. It didn't stop an evil person from doing an evil thing. So maybe gun laws don't work. Maybe that's not the right approach. Maybe we need to step back and say, okay, if banning the guns doesn't work, what do we need to do? Do we need to deal with the actual problems? We have to take a different approach. But no, that's not the lesson they're taking from this. If you paid attention to Trudeau and all his cronies today, what they're doing is they're like, we need stricter gun laws. And we've already got them ready to go to the Senate right now, or whatever their version of the Senate is, the Parliament. So that's the lesson they're taking, that gun laws aren't enough if they're not strict enough. They got to be stricter, stricter, stricter. Even though we have some of the strictest gun laws around, they have to be more strict. That's the lesson they're taking. They're not taking the lesson that most people would be able to take from this, is saying, obviously, there's no such thing as total safety. Only the illusion of total safety can be achieved through the surrendering of freedoms, but you're still not safe, so we need to start trying to do something different. But like I said, that's not what they're doing. They're just going stricter gun laws, stricter gun laws. We need stricter gun laws. Now, I want to apply that to our country. Now, a lot of people get on me and they call me like a fanatic or an extremist because I say no compromise. No background checks, no red flag laws, no nothing, no reasonable anything when it comes to gun rights. And people are like, oh, you're just unreasonable and you make us look bad. No, I'm not unreasonable, and it doesn't make us look bad. It makes us look like we're finally had enough, because all we've done is compromise. Compromise, 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 compromise. See, compromise, the actual word means that people both get something. Both sides of the argument give and get. That's not what we've been doing. We've just been giving for decades and decades and decades, and we've not got anything in return except for things we've won through hard-fought court battles, trying to get some of our rights back. We have never been given any concessions by the other side. And I say, when you do this, when you do give them reasonable concessions, you're not appeasing them. Because as soon as that illusion of safety is broken again, they don't say, oh, it looks like the gun people were right. These universal background checks, these red flag laws, etc. They didn't do anything. They didn't affect the crime rate at all. They didn't stop anybody from being killed. Someone was still killed with these in place. So they don't say, well, I guess they don't work and the gun people are right. They say, we didn't go far enough. We weren't strict enough. We didn't take enough stuff away. And they go on to another step. And every time they will be where they're at, in the position where they've already taken some of our rights. When that illusion of freedom is broken, they'll say, we need to take more. It's only reasonable that we take a little more because something else still happened. So when you give in to these reasonable compromises, when you hear a gun guy or a supposedly pro-Second Amendment gun channel say that universal background checks are okay, or background checks are okay, or reasonable compromises are okay, or don't worry about red flag laws, that person's talking out their ass and they don't have your best interests at heart. And they refuse to learn the lessons that we see everywhere in the world. Every time you give them a little, that's not enough. As soon as you give them some of your freedom for an illusion of safety, as soon as that illusion is shattered, they say, well, the only way to solve this is to surrender more freedom. That's the lesson to take from Canada. It's very clear, and it's the lesson to take from what's happened here in this country. So if you want to eventually give away all of our rights and all of our freedoms, well, then you just keep preaching reasonable compromise and talking about how some things are just common sense and they don't really hurt us, because those are just stepping stones. Now, I don't like slippery slope arguments, but this isn't a slippery slope argument. This is a progressive argument. And it's a showable argument. It's an illustratable argument. They take a little and then a little more and then a little more and then a little more. Every time promising, hey, if we just take this little bit, everyone will be safer. And then when someone's not safe, they're like, wow, we didn't take enough. We need to take a little more. And there'll be some people in the gun community that are willing to keep that going. Keep giving away that little bit because they make a fortune. Every time the other side takes a little bit, they make a fortune. Through views, donations, if they're big organizations, they make a lot of money through gun sales and advertising, etc. It's profitable to them. So every time you hear someone say reasonable compromise or background checks are just common sense, they don't solve any crimes. They don't add anything to our safety. They're illusions. And every time that illusion shatters, the other side will take more. So every time you hear someone say that, common sense gun laws or reasonable compromise, fucking shut them down. Tell them to pay attention to the real world and live in the world where we can actually see what's happening instead of spewing their garbage just to make money.